When you first start your business, it's always tempting to spend money on marketing. You see the adverts that say, I will promote your product, I will promote your service. And you think, I need to spend money to get my product or service out there and to buy customers. But does it actually work? Does spending your hard-earned money on people to promote your product, your service, your business actually drive results? In this episode, we're going to find out. The extraordinary belongs to those that create it. Rebelling against business plans and debt, rebelling against what society expects of us to build cool businesses, make money, have fun, and do good. Let's create something extraordinary together. Welcome to The Rebel Entrepreneur. And on this episode, I have a special guest who you have not met on the podcast, but I have with me Patrick, who is the Rebel Entrepreneur podcast manager. And believe me, I take a lot of managing. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you, Alan. It's good to be on and to actually interact. I guess it's cool.
I know, to actually be here as part of the show. So Patrick, you've been helping us with season 2. So you came on at the start of season 2. What do you actually do for the podcast?
So I make sure that you are happy.
That's got to be a tough job.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's pretty easy. I make sure the episodes get uploaded, make sure it looks clean on the website. And then from there, all the lovely streaming services you listeners are listening to it on, I make sure it gets there.
So Patrick makes all the magic happen in the background that actually gets the podcast out there, which is fantastic. And the reason Patrick's on in this episode is because we came up with an idea and we wanted to do it together. And the idea was these marketing services, if you go on People Per Hour or Upwork or Fiverr.com, you can find people that will promote your service, promote your product and put it out there. And they have these amazing offers that will get you X number of likes and X number of this and X number of that. And they'll really look after you. And I've been wondering for years, does it actually work?
Yeah, I've been wondering the same thing.
So we thought we'd do an experiment. So here's the experiment. We've hired 3. We're thinking of hiring a 4th, but we've hired 3 so far. And we've given each of these people an episode to promote. And then Patrick and I are going to take an episode to promote. We know the baseline numbers, so we know how many people have listened to the show to start with. And then we can see, because these are shows that have been out for a few weeks, so they've settled down in terms of numbers of listeners. And then we can see who does the best result.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it's us, because I'm very competitive.
Well, it'd be interesting to see, won't it? Because the whole premise of this is we're going to spend some money on this and see if we can get it out there. Or is it worth actually doing it yourself? And I think that's a fascinating thing. So one of the things we bought is entitled Promote and Advertise Your Podcast and Get Many Download. Now, I definitely, having read that, know that the gentleman who's selling this, his first language is not English. But then that's not why we're hiring him. We're hiring him to promote the podcast. So I got past that. I think many grammar Nazis would not. But I read this and it's like, hi, everyone. Are you looking for someone who can promote and advertise your podcast? This is the best podcast advertise offer, People Per Hour. We will promote your podcast by real people and bring it on USA, UK, iTunes store, and then says we're going to increase it by this many downloads, possibly 5,000 to 9,000 downloads a month. It's 100% manual work. And that's what they're going to do. And this costs 25 British pounds, which is about $35. It seems incredibly cheap, Patrick.
It does seem really cheap for all the promises that are sort of thrown up in the description there. If they could actually deliver on this, I feel like they deserve to be paid a lot more for their services.
Which I've got high hopes. Like, if this works, brilliant. Let's go for it. Let's see what happens. And there is an element of the location of the country. The gentleman that's selling us this is Bangladesh. So £25 or whatever it is goes a lot further in Bangladesh than it does in the UK. And the same for the US. So you will get more for your money when hiring people from different countries. So we've bought that one. We've brought Promote Your Podcast for increasing audience subscribers and reviews. And we've brought Promote and Advertise Your Podcast on My Podcast to real listeners and followers. That one's on Fiverr.
Is that one, like, just out of curiosity, is that person going to be promoting us on their podcast?
Exactly. Yeah, so they will
Okay.
actually produce an advert on their podcast for our episode, put it out on their podcast, and that's what you pay for. Yeah, it says your podcast or radio program on my popular podcast, which currently airs on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, etc. And he'll put it on his official website and many more digital platforms. Great for established or new podcasts. And that's what he's doing.
That's a super cool way to collaborate, in my opinion.
It's interesting, isn't it? And he's charging $35 and will record the advert, put it on his show 3 times.
Okay. We get 3 different audio advertisements.
I think it's one audio played 3 times.
Okay.
And then some social posts as well. And I find this really interesting. And I know lots of people come to the Rebel Business School saying, I don't want to learn how to promote. I don't want to learn how to market. Can I just pay someone else? And I've always said, don't do that. Learn yourself, because the process of learning the marketing, the sales will help you to understand your target market. It'll help you to understand how to sell to them. It'll help you to grow your business. Like in the start, you should be doing it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, where's the fun if you're just going to be outsourcing the work the whole time? It's your business, it's your brand. Don't you think it'd be great to build it up yourself?
But will this speed things up? Will this make things go faster? And that's, I think, the really thing. Can throwing a few pounds, a few dollars into it actually work and actually speed things up? And this is the test. So this is what we're going to do. The first one has been given episode 7. The second one's been given episode 1. And the third one's been given episode 4 of the podcast. So we've got those 4 episodes. Patrick and I are going to take episode 6. The extraordinary belongs to those that create it, which I recorded. So actually the people per hour and Fiverr people all have guests that people might recognize, which will be easier to promote. Whereas you and I are stuck with just me, Patrick.
Well, you're stuck with me too, helping you out. So it's pretty fair.
And then Patrick and I are going to spend an hour each promoting the podcast, sharing it, putting it out there, and we're going to see who wins. So we're going to do this work today. We're going to come back in about 2 weeks' time and record the end to this episode where we'll review the results and what actually worked and what didn't, because that's what I think is really fascinating.
Yeah, it's a super cool concept, seeing if you can do it yourself.
That's the whole idea.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah. Can you do it yourself? I'm pretty sure you can, but let's also see, does it actually work? Because I think this is one of these tempting shortcuts. Can I throw a bit of money into people per hour in different places and will it actually work? Yeah, so let's test this. Let's see what happens. So one of the particular ones we've bought, the Promote Your Podcast for Increasing Audience Subscriptions, they have started already before we have, and he sent me a few screenshots of what he's been doing so I can see his strategy. He's been posting on social media, sharing the podcast, and he's been saying, review the podcast and inbox me with a screenshot. And then, I don't quite understand this. So review the podcast and inbox me with a screenshot. I will do 2x feedback for your podcast, which is quite interesting. I think he's trying to incentivize people to review our podcast by offering feedback on other podcasts.
Yeah, I think he's leveraging his network. He's basically telling people he'll do what he's doing for us, essentially twice over. Is that what it sounded like in the post?
That seems to be what it sounds like. And he sent me a screenshot of my podcast on iTunes, and he sent me a screenshot of the average rating, the number of people that have already liked my podcast and reviewed it. So he says 81 people have reviewed it. It's got a 4.9 star rating so far, the Rebel Entrepreneur podcast. And he's got some charts about popularity and things. And so he's doing a good job so far, because he's actually gone away and set, here's the baseline for what I'm trying to beat.
Uh-oh. This guy, like I said, I'm competitive, and this guy sounds like he's doing a really good job already. We haven't even started.
He does seem to be. So let's see what happens. Let's do this. So that's the game. If you're listening to this, it's going to be really interesting to see if this works. We're now going to shift gears, Patrick and I, because we're in this competition. And this is going to be interesting. Patrick, we've decided to take episode 6, The Extraordinary Belongs to Those That Create It, How are we going to promote this? What are we going to do?
So I have a strategy to just sort of blitz specific topic internet forums. So I'm going to be kind of slamming Reddit, throwing up an audiogram we made of the episode, and then I'm also going to be sharing on socials as well through specific groups who might be interested. I'm going to try to target our audience.
Ooh, that'd be interesting. So what kind of things you got in mind?
Just a couple posts spreading out as much as we can. I have a list here. I was also seeing if we could leverage our email blast to see if we could potentially grow our listener base to those who maybe haven't listened to the episode yet. Let's leave no stone unturned.
Is that cheating, though, using our own mailing list? Like, is that cheating? None of the other people we've got on this competition have a mailing list. The purist in me is going, that's cheating, Patrick.
Okay.
Because I think it's quite interesting. You should never fool yourself with numbers or different things.
Okay.
Because I think we could destroy them if we used our own mailing list. And, well, that's kind of cheating. But I guess in a way, the one guy on Fiverr who's putting us and advertising us on his podcast, he is using his mailing list. He is using a pre-built platform.
That's what made me think it was okay.
Yeah, now I'm arguing against myself. We should define the rules of engagement. I guess it's anything goes, isn't it? Because we've kind of said to them, just promote the episode, off you go. That's what we bought.
Yeah. Also, a couple other ideas I had. One, I was going to reach out to some people with pretty large LinkedIn followings. And then the other one is I was going to contact chambers of commerce in my area because those are packed full of entrepreneurs. And I think the audiogram we have for The Extraordinary Belongs to Those Who Create It could be something that's enticing to them.
I love that. I love that. And with marketing, I always say, Patrick, test and measure. That's the basic game, is test and measure. And that's exactly what we're doing today. But we're doing it in many different ways. We're hiring other people and we're setting it up so that we can specifically measure the results. By giving each person a different episode, we can specifically see who creates the best results. And then we should also test and measure our own results. How are we going to work out which of these things we do actually works?
I guess one thing we could be doing is monitoring engagement. Obviously, we have the baseline stats to compare with, but how these posts are doing would be great. And then also maybe include a little reach out if you have any questions. As an example, if we're reaching out to chambers of commerce.
Yes.
Be like, hey, if you want to listen to the show, please let us know that you're listening. I guess it's tough to put that on people, but that's about the only metric I can come up with off the top of my head. But we do have time to figure out how we're going to do that.
Well, the pure metric at the end is how many downloads did we get of the podcast? How many downloads, how many subscribers? And the pure metric for people listening to this would be sales. That's the end goal. And I think what I'd love to inspire the audience to do is do a test alongside us, is to go, okay, I've got a product, I've got a service, I'm going to do a marketing test. I'm going to do something on Facebook. I'm going to do something on Instagram. I'm going to send out some flyers. I'll send out a mailer. Maybe I'll spend $20, $50 on someone to help me. And let's do a test. Let's do an experiment and see what works. I don't normally like telling people to spend money, Patrick, but let's do a test, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. And then also I want to ask you, you're the expert in this entrepreneurial field. What are you going to be doing to promote? Make me look bad in front of your listeners.
No, definitely not. I think always the easiest place to start when you're marketing is who do you know? Who do you already know? So I would be thinking, well, okay, who do I know that I might work with? Who do I know that could share this with me? Who do I know that would know someone that is in my target audience? I think like you, I'm a big fan of reaching out to groups of people and trying to find them. Ideally, when dealing with groups, you build up connection with the people before you go in promoting.
Okay.
I think what I try and avoid to do is just going into groups and going, listen to this, when you've never engaged with them before. However, there is a certain amount of that can work. So I think for me, the easiest step is who do I know initially? Let's start with the warm leads. And I was doing this on the coaching episodes with Jamie, the artist. And I was saying to her, well, you've already got a bunch of warm leads because you've got a bunch of people that follow you on Twitter. So why don't you contact them individually? And I made her contact all of her Instagram followers and all of her Twitter followers individually. She said it was quite a painful process and took a lot of time. But then her Kickstarter ended up 223% funded. So
Well, that's awesome. Yeah.
it works. So I'm thinking I'm going to go a little bit old school, Patrick. I'm going to take my own advice. I'm going to get on Twitter and I'm going to speak to some people, do some stuff, knock up some fuss, see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, I like that idea.
Cool. So we have a plan of attack. We've got some marketing materials. So we have an image for each of the shows. You've also been creating some extra marketing materials as well.
Yes, the audiograms, which is essentially our episode's cover art, but it's kind of like a video version of the cover art with waveforms, and it'll actually play an audio clip from the episode.
Fantastic. So we're going to use those to promote on social media and share the word out, and we'll do the test.
Yeah, let's get testing.
Let's get going.
All right. And also, it's nice to meet everybody, the fellow rebels out there.
Welcome to the show, Patrick. We're back. I know to you it's been a few seconds, but for the last hour, Patrick and I have been promoting our episode, The Extraordinary Belongs to Those That Create It, everywhere. Patrick, what have you been up to? What have you been doing?
So I have been slamming community boards on Reddit.
Slamming.
Slamming.
That does not sound...
Slamming. That's a positive slam. So I've been going through small business-oriented communities on Reddit, and then I've also been doing that on Facebook as well. And I still have small future plans when the hours are better to reach out to chambers of commerce, because I don't think they'll pick up at 9 o'clock on a Friday.
No.
But it won't take much time. We won't be cheating technically, but there will be hopefully some posts. But I understand why people pay to do this now, because it's not easy.
It takes time and energy, doesn't it? It takes focus, it takes time, it takes hustle. Yeah, and it takes rejection as well, because you got rejected by one place, didn't you?
I did get rejected. The board I was posting on immediately thought I was a bot just promoting spam. And I literally, right before we started recording this, had to shoot them a message and just be like, hey, I'm a person. My name's Patrick. Please put that post back up. And we're still waiting for the verdict on that one.
So we'll see what happens there. I have shared on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. I've gone to my networks. I've put posts out in some of the Facebook groups I'm part of. And I have uploaded the audiogram you created to the homepage of my website. So if you're listening to this, go to alandonegan.com and you'll be able to see it there, hopefully. But it'll be too late. The test will be over by that point and you won't be affecting the numbers. So don't worry. I'm not using the podcast to cheat in this test.
I was about to say, can we be like, hey, everyone go listen to the Extraordinary Belongs to Those Who Created again?
It is a good episode.
It's a fantastic episode.
So that's what Patrick and I have been doing. Most of what we've been doing has been doing online promotion. We haven't really done any offline promotion. Like, we could do flyers, we could go to events. There's not many events with COVID currently, but you know what I mean? There's other stuff we could be doing. But on a Friday night from the safety of our home, online promotion seems to be one of the best ways to get going.
Also, you're in Mexico and I'm in Boston, so it'd be tough to bridge that gap.
So there we are. That's what we've done. Patrick, what have you learnt from this evening's session so far?
I mean, I formerly was an entrepreneur, still kind of am an entrepreneur, and I just have a lot more respect for the grit that people put into it. Just rolling up their sleeves and getting into it is something that's super admirable, because it's really like not easy to just sit down. Well, it is easy to sit down and do it, but to face that task can be a little daunting.
It can be a little daunting, definitely, because basically you're faced with a blank page every day. How do I make this up? How do I find people? How do I grind it out? How do I do it? And you've got to make it up every single day and get out there and do it.
How do I prove I'm not a robot?
I don't know. You do sound robotic to me, Patrick.
Oh, wow. But yeah, it's definitely a re-emphasizing of respect for this specific career field.
I love that. So we have the next part of this podcast will be recorded in 2 weeks' time. Patrick and I will be back. We're going to be doing a little bit more promotion work in the meantime, and we will review the results of the people that we have hired on Upwork, People Per Hour, and Fiverr to see if they have performed. And we're going to review our own work, Patrick, and to see if what we did actually shifted the numbers on our own podcast.
Can I be honest?
Yes.
I'm really nervous for my results now. I do not feel as confident as I did going into this.
Well, if you want to do some extra over the next few days, I definitely will be. Let's see if we can smash these people and come out on top. But who knows? Who knows? Cool. Thank you for joining me for the first half of the experiment. See you all in 2 weeks. So this is one of those podcasts where you have that magic moment. It's been 1 second for you listening, but it's been 2 weeks for Patrick and I. We are now 2 weeks later. It's the end of April. I'm still sweating in Mexico. Patrick, where are you? In Boston?
I'm still freezing in Boston.
Still freezing in Boston. It's 2 weeks later, and we have the results. So the experiment basically was, does it actually work hiring people to promote your podcast online? Because there's all these People Per Hour, Upwork, Fiverr things where you can hire people, they will promote your stuff, but does it actually work? So we wanted to do the actual numbers and see what happens. So we hired 4 people. We gave them an episode each, and we said, promote this episode. Patrick very kindly created them some marketing resources. So you created, what do you call them? Audiograms, where the thing goes up and down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's like a flashy photo with sound and wavelength files.
Sounds fabulous. So we gave them stuff to do. We gave them an episode each, and we sent them off to work. And it's quite interesting. Oh, I should do another number here, Patrick. Increasing downloads per dollar spent. That would be quite interesting.
Yeah, that does sound super interesting.
Okay, so we're going to do that in a second. But let's start off. We had a bunch of people. We handed episode 1, the pop-up principles, to someone on People Per Hour. And their promotion was called Promote Your Podcast and Increasing Audience Subscribers Review, was exactly what it was called. So we just hired them straight off People Per Hour.
And was that the guy who leveraged his entire network, like basically offering his services for free if they listen to ours?
Yes. So this is Marbub.
Okay.
And he was working from us. I'm not sure which country he is from. But he had episode 1 of the Pop-Up Principles, which before he started had 2,899 downloads. And he managed to get it to, drum roll please, Patrick.
3,054.
So he increased it by 155 downloads. So an extra 155 people have listened to that episode, which, you know, that's interesting. Our hope is that those 155 people who've listened to it, some of them will remain listeners and go on to listen episode 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we've got a new audience.
Yeah.
But he increased the downloads by 5%.
Yeah, and to those who are new to the show, welcome.
Yes, if you're actually listening to this episode and you came in through our work here, that would be hilarious. I love that. And we spent $63.66 on this to increase it by 5%. I'd have to say, I'm underwhelmed, Patrick.
Yeah, I am too. For the price point that we were at, I was expecting him to just sort of blow us all out of the water.
I thought he would. So let's, moving on to the next episode, which we gave episode 3, Zev Siegel, the co-founder of Starbucks. So this contractor actually got an episode with a huge star on it. They weren't just stuck with me talking about business. They got someone they could promote. It was MD Ali from Upwork. We spent $60 with them, and the starting downloads were 2,295. Drum roll, please. What did we get to, Patrick?
2,463. So an increase of 168.
168 extra people listened to that podcast.
Yeah.
I think we're both underwhelmed here. The reaction is kind of crickets.
I mean, it's Zev Siegel.
I know.
I thought that would get more attention.
So did I. So this is some interesting bits here, because then we come on to what do we do next, because we're running a mini experiment to see, does it work? So this particular MD Ali was from Upwork. The first guy was from People Per Hour. So we've spent some money on these different platforms, and it's to see, does it actually work? So let's go on to the next one, which was episode 4 with Jennifer Vessels, which was all about busting the myths of Silicon Valley, which was a great episode. If you've not listened to that one, do go back and listen to it. We hired D Tong Sports from Fiverr, and we spent $38.75 on this. And the starting downloads was 1,944. So, drum roll, please. What did we go up to, Patrick?
2,075. So an increase of 131.
131. So we spent $38.75 to get 131 downloads, which you do wonder, how many of those are real? What happened? Did he just download them himself? Did he get his friends to do it? What happened? But 131 people have listened to it, and you kind of hope that some would stay. I'm definitely, I don't know about you. How do you feel, Patrick? I feel underwhelmed. How do you feel?
Well, okay, so I will say I do feel underwhelmed by the results for the amount of money we spent. But what is cool is these are all listeners coming from separate audiences. So it is working out great for us if you tally up how many new listeners we got in this 2-week period.
Which then it's quite interesting. What we should do next is see if the wider podcast has got more listens over the last 2 weeks, which we'll do those numbers in a bit to see if that works. I mean, I was particularly excited about T-Tongs. It says, I will promote and advertise your podcast on my podcast to real listeners and followers. And he developed a 1-minute advert that he recorded for our podcast. He put it on his podcast. He promoted it on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all of those different things. Like, I had big hopes for this one. And he gets 4.9 stars out of 5 for his reviews on Fiverr. And I guess, we got 131 downloads.
131 downloads, and I'm not an expert in the marketing field by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like $38 for 131 new leads, I guess we can call them, if we're using marketing terms, that's not that great.
Well, it depends what you're selling them. So if you were selling a 10 grand course and they could get 131 people into your funnel, that would be fabulous.
Yeah.
If you're giving away a free podcast, it's a different game. And you're kind of looking for more scale and numbers. So I think it does always depend on what you're selling with these and what your end outcome is. For us, it was increasing the listenership to the podcast. That was it.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next one, which was promote and advertise your podcast. You get many download.
The dark horse.
I know. And it was episode 7. Thomas Anglero is who we gave them. And they went off, and this is Sujon. And Sujon, I feel like he threw himself into this, doing all sorts of different things. And so we started with 1,689 downloads. And what did we get to? Drum roll, please.
1,884.
So he increased the downloads by 195 downloads, which is the best so far. And that's actually a 12% increase on the episode for the princely sum of $34.60. So that's actually not bad.
That's the cheapest candidate we have, yielding the highest results.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. There is never a correlation between price and results. Or maybe I should rephrase that. There's rarely a correlation between price and results. It's quite interesting when you actually go through this. Now it's time for us to throw ourselves under the bus, Patrick. We gave ourselves a episode to promote. We got episode 6, The Extraordinary Belongs to Those That Create It. So we didn't get the star power of Zev Siegel, co-founder of Starbucks. We got my star power.
Yeah, the star power of Alan Donegan.
Which I'm underwhelmed by that. But we started, and I guess this is the one, the cost was free, but time-wise, I probably put an hour and a half into this. So I put an hour and a half of my time. How much time do you think you spent on this, Patrick?
Probably 3.5.
3.5. Okay,
yes.
Cool. So Patrick spent about 3.5 hours.
But... so 5 hours total, but I would say I bet you're results were a lot stronger than mine.
Well, I had access to my own mailing list, my own website. I had a bit more resources available to devote to this. You were kind of starting from scratch, which is always the toughest time when you're just out there grinding from scratch.
Yeah, it was very much grassroots.
Yeah, very much grassroots. So before we get on to like what we actually did, let's reveal our numbers, Patrick. So we started with 1,851 downloads for the episode, and we got to
2,053 downloads.
So we increased it by 202. Woo!
That's the highest increase.
It is the highest increase, although it's 11% increase because we started with a slightly higher number. So in a way, Sujon beat us with the Thomas Anglero episode in percentage, but in raw numbers, we did trounce them. And I think this is an interesting bit. Like, no one is ever going to quite promote what you do quite the same way you do. And people will respond to you doing it. But there's only so much scale you can get because there's only so much time we've got. We spent 5 hours on this, Patrick, 5 hours of our lives to get 202 people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the statement you said where nobody can quite promote it like the people involved in the project. For example, with the episode with Zev Siegel, like maybe he just didn't grasp how big of a guest that was when he promoted it. It's all about understanding it yourself, I guess.
And understand who it is, putting it out there, finding the target market.
And just having the passion.
So let's talk about our experience of doing this. Tell me, what did you do, Patrick? Where did you focus your time and energy?
So I focused my time and energy in sharing it through various social media sites and then also reaching out directly to connections I had made in my career, I guess. I reached out to a couple of Chamber of Commerces. They took a while to get back to me. One still wants to promote us. It's a bit late for the experiment, but I'm happy about that.
But that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell me about that one, because that's the long game is you've got a Chambers of Commerce who has an audience that we want to reach. Tell me about how did that happen? What did you do?
Yeah. So I started a business when I was halfway through college with a friend of mine, and we joined that Chamber of Commerce and actually spoke at one of their events. It was like a networking event at a bar, and we kind of got up and talked about our business in front of everybody. So I just reached out to the guy because I had him in my contact list. Great man. I won't say his name because I don't know if he wants that. But just basically said, hey, I have this show about entrepreneurship I work for. I find this episode and this audio clip very inspirational. I know it's a tough time. I think this could be of use to your members. Would you mind sharing it on your newsletter if you get a chance? And I'm currently still in talks to do that with them.
Fantastic. So please, if I can help, let's follow through on that one. Because marketing is a long game. And we've done a 2-week mini experiment. But let's be honest, sometimes when you're building a business, the seeds you plant in year 1 don't often come to fruition until year 2, year 3, and who knows where they come. And you can reach out to a bunch of people and it only suddenly becomes relevant 6 months, a year later. So marketing is a long game.
Yeah, especially when you're promoting an entertainment medium.
So I promoted it on my alandonegan.com website. I sent it to my mailing list. I shared it on my personal Facebook, LinkedIn. I think I even did an Instagram post. And if you know me, I don't post on Instagram. So I did everything I could. I put in effort. We shared it out there. I shared it in several entrepreneurial groups, several financial independence groups. Like, we did a lot of work there. What was your general feeling doing this work, Patrick? How did it feel?
If I'm being totally honest, extremely nervous. So the first group, the night we did the recording, I reached out to, it was like a subreddit about entrepreneurship, and I tried to post it on their page and was immediately accused of operating a pyramid scheme. And then I had to message them and be like, no. Like, we don't want your money. We just want you to listen to the podcast. We appreciate everything you're doing. Sorry for conveying ourselves like that, or myself like that. But yeah, so from that, at that point on, I was very careful about how I portrayed us in different groups.
And did they come back to you? Did they allow the post, or was that the end of it?
They did not allow the post.
They did not.
Yeah, and it wasn't so much because of the content. It was because I didn't, with Reddit, it operates like you need certain amount of like points to post on boards. And they were like, you don't meet the point qualification. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
That happened with a couple Reddit boards, unfortunately, actually.
Interesting. So this, I think, promotion is a lot of work. It's a huge amount of work. And I think, like, I've known this from the past because at Rebel Business School, we have these 2-week-long free courses, and we try to get people to turn up to 2-week-long free courses. Do you know how much effort and energy it takes to fill a course with 100 people?
Yes, I imagine it is quite difficult.
Like, this is a full-time job of ringing people, sharing flyers, going to places, posting on every social media, getting into every group. Like, this is a full-time job. And actually, it's the biggest repeating challenge we've had at Rebel Business School is continually promoting the courses. And it's a free course. This is a free podcast. Imagine what it's like when you're trying to sell it.
Yeah. And I mean, as a testament to you, I know how hard you work. And if you're saying it's difficult, then I will take your word for it.
So yeah, that's what's happened. That's where we've got to. I think it's been an interesting experiment. Patrick, what I'd love you to do is just take a second and write down, what have you actually learnt here? What have you actually learned? I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm also going to calculate how much it cost per new listener, per download, because I think that's a fascinating number. So Patrick, what have you learnt from this experiment? What have you got out of it?
So I learned that promotion is definitely not an easy game. It's very much for those who are willing to just roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty and dive right into the work. But I also learned that it's a labor of love. If you care about the project, then it's not as, I guess, bad as you think it would be, putting in the time to promote it. And I think knowing about the project also helps. If you care about the project, you can do a better job of promoting it, as opposed to somebody else just taking this blank slate and trying to bring as much color to it as possible.
It absolutely helps to have that passion and that energy. And that's one of the reasons why at the Rebel Business School, we always say to people, you could pick a business doing anything. Why not pick something you're excited about? Because sales is the transfer of enthusiasm from one person to another. So if you can't get enthusiastic about your product, how do you expect to get someone else enthusiastic to listen to it, to eat it, to use it, to buy it? How do you expect that? So pick something you love doing and let that enthusiasm transfer.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not as, I guess, business savvy as you are, so I'm very excited to hear what your takeaway from it was.
So I think my biggest fear when I started with this was hiring these people online. Are they going to be real downloads? Is it actually they're going to find real people to listen to the podcast, or are they just going to use a computer program to bump up Apple downloads and have it repeating on download? And it seems as though it's been real downloads. It seems that way because we've had some retention. So we had 851 new downloads from all of the promotion. And overall, the first 8 episodes increased by 1,453 downloads. So every new person that came in listened to 2 podcasts. And I'm sure that's in the first 2 weeks. You'd hope that we'd have some retention. Those numbers would keep going up and we're growing the audience. So I think my fear was allayed, Patrick. It feels like it's real listeners. How does it feel to you?
It definitely feels like it's real listeners. I feel like Rebel Entrepreneur is on some new phones for sure.
Excellent.
If it was literally just those 4 outliers, the 4 we decided to promote, and the rest of them, the other 4, the back 4, I guess we'll call them, saw no increase, then I'd say we got click farmed.
Yes, but it doesn't feel like that happened. I think the same as you, promotion is a big game. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy, and it's hard work. It's hard work getting the message out there. However, it's the grinding, the hustle, it's doing the work, it's getting into the forums, the groups, promoting, sharing. That's what actually increases download numbers. That's what actually gets your product or service out there. And you can pay someone to do it, and we've got some results here. We've paid, like, we had the best results, Patrick.
Yeah.
We got the most downloads, but there does come a stage in any business where you can't scale yourself and you need to have people help you. And it varied from the cheapest was 18 cents a download up to the most expensive, which was 41 cents a download. So, yeah, on average, it cost us 25 cents a download to get people to listen to the podcast. And that's quite interesting. The question is, do those new listeners stick around? And I think we've got a little indication that some of them are, but are they actually going to stick around? Like, if we scaled this, let's say we put some more money in, let's say we took $1,000 and put it in, would we see that exponential increase? Would they stick around? What would happen? And it's fascinating when you start to do this. Yeah, and I think at the start of any business, it's tempting to spend money on people advertising your product or your service. And it can work. It can work.
It can work, and stick around for when Alan puts $1,000 of his own money on the line to see if we can scale it.
You know I don't like spending money. You know I'm not a big fan of this.
I know, that was a joke. Yeah, no, it's definitely cool to see, I guess, the comparison of paid labor versus your own labor, especially at this stage in the game.
Yes, definitely. And here's the question, Patrick. If this was your own money and we have spent 197 US dollars, which, you know, for the British people out there, it's about 150 quid. Like, for me, I don't like spending any money on stuff, but would you do it again? If this was your money, would you invest it in this way?
Honestly, no. I think the amount of time it would take me to earn $197, I'd rather just promote on my own. I would rather invest that time in learning different methods of promotion and then carrying it out on my own as opposed to paying someone else. Because, I mean, you can see in the stats, we did a better job numbers-wise, virtually with not that much knowledge of how to promote, or at least from my perspective, not that much knowledge of how to increase listenership.
And actually, I think if we actually sat down and put together a plan, Patrick, and we said, okay, we want to expand listenership, here's the ways to do it. Ask the existing audience, you listening, to share it, promote it in this way, run a competition. I'm sure we could come up with many ways to grow the audience ourselves.
Do you know what's a bummer? I thought of a creative idea last night to promote, and I was just like, well, it's too late. I was so disappointed that I came up with that idea last night.
It's never too late, Patrick. We're still running the podcast. It's too late for the mini experiment.
Yeah.
So what was the idea? Tell me the idea.
My idea was to create a QR code and essentially just have a blank white page with a QR code in the middle, and then underneath it, this was primarily for the extraordinary belongs to those who create it, and just have live the life of your dreams underneath. Because I feel like that's kind of a bit of incentive to see what's on that QR code. But yeah, that was the idea I had.
I love it. Let's try it. And then to just put it in front of people. Or maybe I should get it printed and put on a board in Oaxaca so that people can walk past. Maybe we should just get it printed on different boards around the country and see if anyone scans it as they're walking past.
Do you want to get that printed on a wearable sign, and I'll just stand around downtown Boston just trying to get people to scan it?
I do think if I saw you with a wearable sign that said live the life of your dreams, I would think you would be, converting me to some kind of pseudo religion, some kind of, and I remember doing an experiment with my business partner, Simon. We went to promote a pop-up business school, a Rebel business school, in a shopping mall with flyers. And we thought we'd hand out flyers to the passers-by. And Simon tried several approaches. And one of them was if you're standing there with flyers, what percentage of people do you think just ignore you?
Pretty large percentage, 75%.
It's actually more than that, nearly everyone. And most of them actually cross to the other side of the mall to try and get away from you. It's don't give me this stuff. It's really tough. So Simon started smiling at people. He started talking to people. Then he said, this flyer will change your life. And people looked at him like he was crazy. Get away from me, crazy man. What are you doing? It is not an easy job to get people to pay attention. People are busy. They've got stuff to do. They've got things to be. And you've got to grab their attention, get them excited about your product or service. This is a tough ask.
Yeah. What if I'm dancing with a wearable sign?
I don't know. I feel like I'm actually up for this and filming it, and then we could put it on social media and use it as well. How's your dancing?
Bad, but I'm also
even
shameless.
Better.
Yeah.
Even better. So look, to the people listening, these are my closing thoughts. We've spent some money. It's had some impact. The biggest impact was Patrick and I's own sweat equity of putting in, getting the message out there and doing it. And that's probably always going to be the case, because who is going to be the best at promoting your product or service? If you practice, it's going to be you with your enthusiasm. There comes a stage when you're growing a business that you might want to invest some money into having someone help you do it. But that should be done from a position of profit, not from a position of, I don't want to do the hustle when I'm starting. And I think when you're starting, get out there, tell people about your product or service, do the hard work. It can be disheartening. It can be tough, but that's how you build the strength of character and the audience and the customers that are eventually going to make your business successful.
Couldn't agree more.
Patrick, do you have any closing messages for our audience, the fabulous people listening who are actually out there doing the hard work rather than you and me fanning around doing promotional mini experiments? Do you have any closing messages for the people doing the hard work out there?
Yeah, don't discredit yourself as an option. I guess I probably should have said it that way earlier, but don't discredit what you can do to grow your business. Like you said earlier, hiring someone isn't always the answer, especially if that's coming from a point of just like, oh, I don't want to do this. You can have an impact even if you don't think you can. I was surprised to see that we won. I didn't think we did, or from a numbers standpoint. I did not think I had that much of an impact, but it was cool to see for sure.
So my closing message to all of you listening is get out there and do it, take action, market it, and actually run a mini experiment for marketing for your business. If you want to dabble with hiring someone for a few dollars out of your profit, do it, but run a mini experiment. Track the numbers. Did they help drive people? Did you get any new inquiries? Did your work? And do a mini experiment and actually have a go at competing against people. Because if you do that, you'll really get to understand the amount of work it takes to get a customer, the amount of energy, time, money you have to put in to get customers, and you'll understand exactly how your business works. So my suggestion to all of you listening is have a go at running a marketing mini experiment. You can have any life you want to. Choose to build something cool. Choose to take action. Choose to work to make your dreams become reality. Stand out. Be different. Be yourself. Be a rebel entrepreneur.